Uncommon Sense, Notes on Life and Business. Written by Christopher Uyi. Narrated by Adrian Galley. An Audio Shelf production. Part 1. Introduction. To live a successful life and to manage a business successfully are both built on the same foundation, which is strategy. However, each one that attains success in life and business do this not by the same strategy. That is, no two individuals attain success with exactly the same formula. The reason for this is that our circumstances and the timing of events differ. People cannot always hope to, at different times, apply exactly the same methods to similar circumstances and expect same positive results as was achieved at a previous moment. Therefore, if an individual hopes to constantly be successful in his different endeavors from time to time, he must consistently evolve his strategy and make appropriate decisions in the reality of the situations per time. Over the years, there are fundamental and general rules and advice for caution, which have evolved to become generally accepted by people as the right and proper way to do things. These society has loosely termed common sense. The dictionary defines common sense as a basic ability to perceive, understand, and judge things which are shared by nearly all people and can be reasonably expected of nearly all people without any need for debate. Fortunately, common sense can take us to average achievements in life and business, and it is simple to live by, being that it simply demands that we do things in a manner consistent with the way people have always done them. On the other hand, common sense unfortunately brings about a common approach, which in turn begets mediocrity. Crowd knowledge takes you to crowded destinations, which are usually average places in society, because if everybody can achieve similar results or get to the same place, then there is nothing special about such achievement. To achieve what most people cannot in life and to get to the top of our business, we must think differently and act unconventionally by re-examining common sense. The result of what we get from our mental quest is uncommon sense. This uncommon sense is what lots of people miss out on, and which can be mostly pointed out as the source of business and life struggles. Common sense keeps us prepared for big challenges, but it is the small unforeseen challenges that sometimes bring about negatively impacting mistakes in our lives and business. Wise men have long ago said that men stumble on stones and not on mountains. We bypass or climb over the mountains because they are obvious, but we trip on stones because they are most times inconspicuous. It is uncommon sense that gives us the extra alertness to notice the inconspicuous stones and take the necessary maneuvers. I define uncommon sense as supreme practical knowledge. It is the kind that one gains from an active politician rather than a political science professor. Through experience, I can say that it profits more to understudy business from an active businessman than from an MBA professor. Because you do not go to school to be a businessman, rather you do a business to be a businessman. Through the years, I have come to know that certificates hardly ever correspond with practical intelligence. I consider education to be extremely good and important, but I believe its main purpose remains to broaden our minds and teach us to think for ourselves. Through observation and research, I have come to know this humble truth, that some people have no business in business. If an individual finds himself to be in this position, it will be most profitable for that individual to choose a career path. People can very well still attain financial emancipation from sincerely working a regular job and imbibing the necessary habit of saving and investing. Business is not for the faint-hearted. As fire refines gold, a businessman is refined by problems and failures. There are 7 things that make an entrepreneur. The 7th differentiates what I term the CEO, that is, an entrepreneur who operates by strategy and structure, from the hustler, whose main purpose for business is just to meet their daily needs and to survive. These 7 key factors are: 1. Initiative. 2. Ability to take risk. 3. Ability to gather right information. 4. Networking skills. 5. Persistence. 6. More persistence. 7. Structure. The easiest way to attain success in business is to start with a good idea that is refined through correct information and executed with uncommon sense. Now, in this book, I offer the readers a deeper and uncommon understanding to a handspread of vital and discrete subjects of life and business, with the intent to give the readers a clearer perspective on the issues discussed for a more successful life. These thoughts have been made simple to comprehend, but do not let their seeming simplicity deny you of the profound knowledge they present to you. Christopher Uyi. Chapter 1. Opportunity. Opportunity is before our eyes every day, but there is a price to pay to recognize it, and that price is attention. People say fortune comes in turns. I cannot but very well agree. The truth, however, is that only we can bring about our turn. Opportunity is always around us, but until we pay attention and turn to it, then do we bring our turn for fortune. One can unknowingly waste a whole lifetime waiting for his turn of fortune, while his turn is waiting on him. Positioning is of utmost importance in identifying and exploiting opportunities. The greatest threat to exploiting an opportunity is procrastination, because there is hardly ever an exclusive right to an opportunity. So while you delay for reasons best known to you, someone else identifies an opportunity, and then it is gone. Most of us have been victims of procrastination. Casting your mind back, you will recall a few times when a moment of needless delay made you lose a much-needed opportunity. It happens often that we think about a business idea, but while we are still contemplating its possibilities or giving excuses why we have to wait before attempting it, someone starts same business and we begin to wonder if they read our mind. Opportunities are like mature ladies in need of a spouse. They go with the most serious and ready suitor. I have had some people ask me how they can achieve their global ideas. My first advice to them always is, before you push for a global idea, try to first have local relevance. Common sense teaches us that charity begins at home, so you must start from where you are. It is common sense that you must be standing and balanced before you try to push a car. In the same way, one should get a good standing from his immediate environment before trying to impact the world. Economists have long ago stated the obvious truth that people's wants are limitless. So, also, we can say that opportunities are limitless, since opportunities are simply an entrepreneur's ability to satisfy people's wants. The secret to identifying opportunities lie in one finding a way to convert people's wants to a service or product, and then figuring out how to make them pay for it. Alternatively, you can improve on an existing service or product, because people's wants also include the desire for improved services or products. Think for yourself. Can you do something already existing faster or better? Can you give more for less? Or better still, can you come up with a product that makes life easier and figure out how to make people realize their need for it? If one keenly explores these thoughts, one will discover an opportunity that has been staring and smiling at you, just waiting to be asked out on a date of fortune. Once you identify an opportunity, you must critically ask, how does this opportunity pay me, and who will be willing to pay for it? We are discussing business here. Therefore, every idea must come down to money. If an idea has no potential to generate an income, then it is not an opportunity for business. Whatever is not done for money is charity. It is important that I emphasize here that your opportunity may be a paid employment. However, what differentiates an employee with an entrepreneur's mentality from a normal employee is that an employee with an entrepreneur's mentality sees his job as a quick apprenticeship and therefore passionately attends to his job, seeking to learn from it and absorb as much as possible in that line of business and concerning business ethics generally. The employed entrepreneur constantly seeks within himself better ways to run the firm more efficiently, if he were to own it. He maintains an owner mentality, even while employed, while a regular employee just does his job for the paycheck. Chapter 2. Capital. The lazy dreamer will always have fantastic excuses to cover his bad fate. Oftentimes I have had people come to me and complain they have no capital. And when I ask what they mean by capital, it is always about money. Ridiculously, most times these amounts they're in need of is beyond their intellectual and emotional capacity to manage. Capital is not always money. The greatest capital is a working mind. An entrepreneur whose background is one where he has nobody to finance his dreams has to find a way to legally achieve what he so desires. Now, there are countless ideas, mainly in the line of services, through which anyone can get involved in to acquire capital. One example of this kind of service is acting as a middleman or agent. An agent does not necessarily need to purchase the goods he sells. All he needs to do is to source for able buyers and then connect them with credible sellers. The first real money I made, which was at the age of 19, was from the sale of a piece of land a friend's dad owned. Somehow the information filtered through to me, and I acted on it. While sitting in my friend's living room, I overheard his dad discussing with an associate about selling off a piece of land that he owned. I developed a rapport with him and asked if I could help him with the sale. He laughed, but agreed. The fact that he laughed and doubted my ability made me more determined to be the one to get the buyer for the land. I immediately went into work mode by sourcing for and contacting as many estate agents I could find in my vicinity. Some, as expected, did not take me serious, but some did. In no time, one of the agents got back to me with a buyer. I led them to my friend's dad and curiously watched their hard bargain. Finally, an agreement was reached, the deal was consummated, and I got paid. Though I was paid below the standard brokerage fee on transactions such as that, I did not push or bother to negotiate more because, first of all, I was not really in need of the money then, being that I was just 19 years old, had a comfortable home, and, most importantly, I was just being paid for having the right information. I bought a pair of shoes of my choice from the money I made, and still had enough to spare. Strangely, I loved that shoe more than all the other shoes I had then, because it was my first experience of owning something that I bought for myself from my own work. More importantly, I learned my first invaluable lessons about money. That money comes by having the right information and then meeting a need. I also learned a good lesson about human nature, and that was that people are more willing to help when they see you making an effort. Lots of people will tell you they cannot start anything because they have no money, but the truth is that they are only subscribing to a popular lie, which they now consider the truth. As I earlier stated, a working mind is the greatest capital. Availability is next, followed by right information, and then the will to do something about what you have heard. All these come before money. Availability is key, because it is by making yourself available at the right place at the right time that information comes to you. Everybody has the big dream, that is, the big business they want to do. Some are lucky to have people who are willing to finance their dreams. But when you are coming from a place without such means, or you have them but rather choose the path of being self-made, then you have to start with what is termed a hustle. That is, a business built on intense creativity, tenacity, and resourcefulness. You have to start doing the little things and then saving the little cents till they build up into dollars. And that then serves as capital for your next level of business that will lead to bigger businesses, till you get enough to finance your dream business. The miracle about life is that when you enter work mode, there comes a time when everything seems to come together for good. New clients keep coming through referrals, and then you discover better ways to render your service or cheaper places to source your products. And these increase your profit. There is an unsolved mystery about money, and that is, the more money you have in your possession, the more opportunities and more money you attract. The blessing with starting from the bottom of business, which is the hustle, is that you learn valuable lessons to help you survive at the top. Many big businesses that close shop too soon were the romantic imaginations of some folks who were lucky enough to have someone who had some funds to, I would rather say, waste than invest. Because anyone who decides to invest $1 million with an individual who has not proven his adroitness with a few $1,000, I believe never had the plans of getting his money back. Through careful observation and experience, I can very well say that the best way to grow an enterprise is to start from the bottom to the top. In other words, grow from a hustler to a CEO, and not the other way around. A CEO without experience from the lower ranks of his business will most likely end up in debts as a nobody, or end up as a hustler, which will be too painful for him to bear, being that he has tasted the good before the bad. People that suffer such fate are the ones that usually end up committing crimes, because in a bid for quick recovery, they come up with all kinds of impractical schemes that puts them on the opposite side of the law. For those who inherit a business or start business with an inheritance, the advice here will be that they must be firm, quickly learn as much as possible about their environment, human nature, the business, and be doubly watchful. Chapter 3. Profit and Loss. The first step to achieve good financial management in business is to understand that yourself and your business are separate entities. Your business profit is not your money, but company's money. Your money is the salary you pay yourself and other incomes you get from your investments. Being self-employed is not a call to financial recklessness. The difference between you and a regular employee is that you determine what you earn. If you, however, decide to act otherwise, that is, spend the company's money as your personal income, then it simply means you have no future plans for the company, but possibly do have plans for yourself. The problem with sole proprietorship, otherwise called one-man business, is that it usually ends because of one man's mistake. If your company is small and solely owned by you, it is advisable that you act like you answer to a board of directors or investors, and that excuses will not be accepted when it comes to returns on investment. Investors really do not care whatever happens to you. They just need returns on their money. Be they the loan sharks, the hidden bosses, or the banks, they are all the same. They all do not care. It is wiser to give the stories to the birds, while you give the investors their returns. The sole purpose of running any business or making an investment is for profit, and so the investors are in their right and completely morally justified to expect and demand returns on their investments with you. If your understanding is different, then you should simply declare that you run a non-profit organization, charity. Though painful, losses are our best friends. It is losses and difficult situations that bring out the best in us when we have the right attitude to them. It is when we make losses and trouble stares at us that we can truly test our sagacity and business acumen. More still, it gives us the needed opportunity to test the loyalty of the people around us. When challenging times come, as they usually do, we must be prepared for painful, mind-wrecking words from anyone and everyone. Depending on how huge your losses are and their significant timing, losses usually hold a message for a change of approach or strategy. If your losses bring you debts, carefully avoid the common logic of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because Peter will definitely at some point come for his money. You are better off putting Paul in the right perspective of things, especially if the debt emanated from explainable causes. This is a better option, as what Paul will have for you is simply disdain. But if you have made the mistake of using Peter's money to pay Paul, when Peter comes for his money, what he will have for you is vengeance, because you have insulted his intelligence and taken him for granted, which only a few people can forgive. There is, however, a reversal on this issue above about handling debts and your creditors. Ultimately, your judgment must be based on the principle of safety first. That is, you should weigh your options. Between Peter and Paul, who has the most power and the most tendency to do you the most harm? Then act accordingly. It is worthy of note here that for an entrepreneur to be financially stable, there are two conditions he must attain. First of all, he must diversify his growing empire to include multiple streams of income through multiple businesses and/or investments. Secondly, he must grow his empire in such a way to include a business, no matter how small, that provides him daily or unfailingly weekly or at most monthly income. An entrepreneur that fails to have either one or both of these state of affairs in his upcoming empire will likely have lots of difficult days, not necessarily because he is bankrupt, but simply because of delays in cash flow. Sometimes the income from the big business is not readily available to pay the small bills, because expected incomes sometimes take longer than expected to come. Chapter 4. Focus. The fastest way to failure is to overburden yourself with unnecessary things. Business itself brings you daily necessary things to deal with. Adding the unnecessary to them simply kills your mind and body. I have chosen the word unnecessary rather than small, because some things are small but necessary, so the emphasis is on its necessity. Unfortunately, the biggest force of distraction, which most times is very hard to ignore, is very bad words from very good friends, family, and those we look up to. People always somehow get to stand in your way with words and then in actions. You have to be tough-skinned to break through their ranks and remain focused. The fact is, if nobody is saying anything or standing in your way, then you are likely doing something common. It is when you are doing the extraordinary that opposition comes. However, you should care little about what people from your past say, especially when they are still where you left them. Understand that gossip and backbiting is the only balanced diet the poor and jobless mostly have. It keeps them refreshed. Now, there is a difference between being self-employed and being unemployed. You may have become self-employed because you were unemployed, but once you decide to become self-employed, you immediately have become employed by yourself and should erase whatever reason that pushed you into working for yourself. You have now become gainfully employed because you are either gaining money or gaining experience. This humble truth should also be made known to your friends and family. It is absolutely true that being self-employed sometimes leaves you with some free time. However, one must be disciplined enough not to allow people to make requests from you by engaging your free time for their sole benefit. Avoid idle chatter. You should not be the go-to person when the employed get bored on their off days or annual leave. You should not be the go-to person for family errands. You should not be the go-to person to quench the boredom of the still unemployed. An entrepreneur's job is 24 hours, 7 days a week. Because when entrepreneurs are not physically working, their minds never stop working. There are many things that call for an entrepreneur's attention. Nonetheless, the entrepreneur should make time for family and friends. In this free time, one can attend to as many issues as can be attended to within the given time frame. This gives the entrepreneur a balanced life. One good thing about spending time with family and friends is that it gives them the opportunity to give you both needed and unheeded advice. Though I consider advice to be generally helpful, unfortunately, some are rather the opposite. Most times it is very good friends that give very bad advice. However, this is usually not done deliberately, because such friends and family members have only advised you to the best of their knowledge patterning a situation, and have further wrapped up the advice with their sentiments through their own professions and experience. Though they may be sincere in their advice to you, sincerity is not a guarantee for rightness. They were sincere, but they were sincerely wrong. In conclusion, the best way to remain focused is to stay true to yourself and your goals, and be ruthlessly realistic in dealing with issues and people, whoever they are. Maintain an eagle eye to see through all forms of manipulations and distractions from people and events. You must understand that people will always talk and act in whatever way they like, with little or no consideration to you, and it is their right to do so. Also, people will always pretend, because it is what the world has become. Everybody acts. Nonetheless, you must maintain focus, because if you succeed or fail, you bear the burden alone. Chapter 5. Motivation. Oftentimes I hear about people needing motivation in the form of seminars from motivational speakers or other means to perform better on their daily task. If this truly exists, then those set of people can be categorized into two groups. The first will be those who are too rich to worry about work, and the second will be those who are broke but either have someone paying their bills or, miraculously, do not have any bills to pay at all. Years back, I knew a man who always complained about lacking motivation to go to work. I fully understood his position because he fell in the second category. He had his wife paying practically all the home bills. 2 years later, his wife divorced him. Ever since then, he has never complained about lacking motivation on his job. Your bills and your belly do not care if you do not like your job. They just must be taken care of. An entrepreneur, however, is highly motivated. The hunger from his belly to his bills, the satisfaction of independence, and then the quest for luxury and power drives him on. I used to think this was limited to the hustlers, until I recently sat and had a long chat with a billionaire. He was far more motivated than any men I had met. His hunger was for power, and of course more money to keep him constantly far from the shackles of poverty. He told me, and I quote, "Poverty runs so fast that a little sleep or slumber from your part, it overtakes you." A decade ago, one could have been right to say that one loses motivation to work unless one loves what they do. Unfortunately, the harsh realities of the present-day economy does not give entrepreneurs the chance for such sentiments. People have come to realize that those are needless sentiments. The world has changed. The billionaire confessed to me that he never had love for his kind of business, but the money that comes from it has made him love it. So, I will not be wrong to say, your needs are all you need to love that job or business. Though having a passion for it makes the work seemingly easier, because it is more enjoyable to do what you have a passion for. The good thing about life is that when you are determined to love a thing, that thing begins to show you its good side, just like some subjects in school. As a kid, I hated mathematics. Somehow the subject and all its teachers seemed to hate me too, and was unimaginably difficult. But when I changed my attitude towards it and deliberately decided to love it, it surprisingly became easy. Now that's the power of love. Love brings understanding. When they say love is blind, it means that love blinds you to all the wrongs or difficulties of a thing or person. So love your job, and you will find all the motivation in there. But if you cannot still find it in your heart to love your job by any means, then, for the sake of your needs, you need to find a way to hang in there and let your job pay your bills, while you strive to save as little or as much as possible, which then pays your way to your dream business or job. Chapter 6. Courage and Faith. Courage is the ultimate belief in yourself, from which you get the inner direction, strength, and fearlessness to become what you want to be. Some people think that business is fun. I really wish it was. No matter how passionate you are about your business, or how talented, and with all the needed capacity to do your business, there will always be heartbreaking and mind-shaking challenges. The home truth is that business is war, and it is war all the way. However, 90% of that war is within you. There are constant battles to fight within the mind of an entrepreneur. Your greatest enemies are your personal doubts and the circumstances within you. And the only weapons you have against them are your courage and faith. Courage is the ability to choose opportunity rather than security, with no certainty of success. Opportunity always comes with a shared probability between success and failure. There are, however, few times in life, maybe once or twice, when a divine opportunity shows up with about 99% success guaranteed. Unfortunately, the lack of courage could still make some people use that 1% probability of failure to come up with 99 reasons why they cannot accept or attempt the opportunity. The world belongs to risk-takers, and that is what entrepreneurs are. We all have fears, but to succeed in life, you must begin to channel your fears in ways that give you energy to become or do what you want, rather than act on what you feel. An example of such channeling is making the fear of poverty or the fear of getting broke push you to work hard and explore opportunities. This is done by reconditioning your mind from choosing to always play safe so that you do not lose what you have, to understanding that the more you think you have attained security, the easier it is for what you have to diminish or be taken away by sudden and unexpected circumstances. When it comes to finances, the most secure man is the man that keeps moving. When we decide to act in courage, fear does not automatically disappear. Rather, what courage does for us is to give us the resolve through understanding that what we must achieve is way more important than our fears. Our fears will not pay our bills. Therefore, we must state our goals, then state what needs to be done, and then fearlessly go all out to achieve it. On the other hand, faith is a step higher than courage. It is the ultimate belief in God. It is through faith that we get the strength to hold on and make it through the times when all sense of rationality and logic fails. It is faith that keeps us from losing our mind in the difficult times. It is faith that brings about accomplishments that we know is certainly beyond our capacity to accomplish. It is the source of all miracles, from unmerited favors, life itself, to good health, without which there is little anyone can accomplish. A life of constant pursuits without a belief in something and someone above us is the fastest path to depression and a total mental loss in value for everything and anything attained. I have heard people argue that one can become successful without God. I must confess that it is true, but I can also attest to a higher truth, that it is way easier to be successful with God. Also, those that keep faith in God are usually the most happy people amongst us, because one of the key fringe benefits of faith is contentment. Sometimes we may have done things in life that we're not proud of and may feel we cannot approach God in faith because of our wrongs. This usually is the consequence of the common knowledge that religion gives us about God. Religion teaches us mainly about God's judgment and power. But a deeper understanding of God teaches us that God is more of love and understanding, and by His understanding comes forgiveness and the giving of a second chance. No matter our past wrongs, failures, and flaws, our easiest path to success and happiness is to come to God in faith, believing He is God, and He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. Chapter 7. Family. Family is about giving your all and expecting nothing in return. It is the single and most important part of any individual's life. This explains why most of the important events in our lives are always tied to family. No matter how talented, intelligent, or anointed a person is, his life starts from a family. Even Jesus, the Christ, whose birth was divine, still came into this world through a family. The fact that God, in His infinite wisdom, delivered you into this world through a particular family is not a thing of chance, but of perfect orchestration and divine purpose. No matter how important we become to this world, the two most important events of our lives, which are our birth and death, are usually almost exclusive rights of our family. Some people, in their limiting beliefs and sentiments, think that friends are far better value than family because of the freedom they get from their peers. They see family values as outdated and burdensome and prefer rather to live in the freedom they get among their peers. Unfortunately, when the challenging times of life comes up, they realize the foolishness of their choices. Through the chaos of life, we sometimes wish that we had come from a different family, believing that with a different kind of family, we would have it easier in finding our path through life and achieving our goals. We sometimes blame our parents for our unhappy childhood. We blame them for even our own flaws. I personally believe that family loyalty should be a 100%, because if we cannot rely on our family through good and bad times, then we are more alone and unsafe from the dangers of this world than we have realized. The family bond should be such that no single member is above the family unit, and no outsider should be put above the family. And whatever happens within the family as a unit should stay within the family. About family values, it is good that we realize that the building blocks of family are not divided into old school and new school, as we might have imagined in our youth. The early knowledge of this will save us from needless regrets in our later years. The hierarchy within a home should always be respected, but while that is done, it is advisable that nobody, not even the youngest sibling or our own children, should be taken for granted. It is absolutely necessary that we take into account all emotions and temperaments within the family. Family is an indivisible unit, hence, no matter the case, all arguments should be ended respectfully. From experience, I have carefully observed that within the family unit, everything is pretty resolvable. Therefore, no matter the bitterness from an issue, one must never cut him or herself off from the family, because a stray sheep is easier to prey on. It is a known fact that if a branch is cut from a tree, it has no future. Rather than stay in bitterness, it is wiser to let issues call for and teach more understanding, because lack of understanding is the reason issues arise in the first place. It is absolutely normal for disagreements to occur within a family sometimes. In fact, I personally believe that if there are no such disagreements in opinion between family members sometimes, then people are not telling each other the needed truth. Unfortunately, the temporary peace that may exist from such shying away from addressing issues truthfully within the family may lead to more volatile situations in the future. In addressing parental flaws, it is important that we put things in the right perspective. No matter how unhappy your childhood might have been, you cannot totally blame your parents, and it is unfair on yourself to remain in self-defeating and limiting bitterness. It is only fair and much wiser that we acknowledge that parents are humans too. In fact, they are first humans, then individuals, before they are our parents. Simply put, our parents are first human beings with natural and general flaws as humans, and then they are individuals with their own peculiar flaws, before they are then our parents. They are not first our parents, then individuals, before being humans. With this understanding, it should be easier for us to forgive their flaws and then appreciate them more for who they are. We know that it is impossible to be perfect in this imperfect world, and our parents have likely done most things they did to us and for us in our best interest. For hardly will any responsible parent wish his child evil. Realizing this will help us to love them unconditionally. As regards to money, when family members are in need, it is best to engage in charity and give them what you can afford at the moment without expecting them to repay you. Very little money can sometimes cause very big trouble among family members. This would have not been so if people repay our money borrowed to them with the same meekness as when they asked for it. Despite the glaring fact, we cannot still conclude that they deliberately do not want to repay us. It is better we leave such issues as some of the aberrations in life. To summarize this, family and money do not mix well. Outside of these, we should hold on to our own family underlying principles. For when it comes to family, the fundamental working formula hardly ever changes, but differs from home to home. One more point that is worthy of note here is that we really owe nothing to our in-laws, unless they are written in the laws. Chapter 8. Friends and Associates. As a boy, I heard a couple of times the saying, 10 friends don't play together in 10 years. It took me 10 years to fully understand this saying. With time, people and circumstances change. These changes include change in location, intellect, financial status, and others. Just as water finds its level, individuals begin to fade into their own paths in life. In business, it is advisable that we subscribe more to associates than friends. For friends will always take more from you than they give. The obvious reason they will give for this is that you are their friend, and you owe them for friendship's sake. On the other hand, relationships between associates are based on interest. If we constantly bear in mind our interests and carefully pick associates with shared interests, we will have a smoother and happier path in our endeavors. The key to successful friendship is to remain relevant. If you are needed, even if you are in the farthest village, you will be looked out for. For where the grass is green, the flock will be found. But if you have no relevance in satisfying people's interest, you could be in the center of the busiest city and still nobody will knock on your door, except your creditors. Associates are not to be trusted, but in today's society, you must act civilized by acting like you trust everyone. The emphasis is on acting. Within yourself, you must constantly bear in mind that it is all business and no sentiments is needed. However, despite this shrewdness in thought as your psychological base when dealing with associates, you must strive to always, as much as possible, treat associates with utmost respect, and also respect your agreements with them. Now, the easiest way to acquire an enemy is to tread on an individual's ego or disrespect your agreements with them, be them gentlemen agreements or legally binding documents. Talking about agreements, It is advisable to always have legally binding documents rather than gentleman agreements, which are simply fragile promises. I have taken years to personally search far and wide, and also to observe events between lots of associates. Unfortunately, I have found that there are just too few gentlemen when it comes to business and money. So, to follow the path of caution, it is best we assume that none of the gentlemen in business exist anywhere in our environment. Following this assumption that there are no gentlemen around us in business, then we have no need of a gentleman agreement. As much as possible, it is best to have legally binding documents made up by a legal professional, then study them and sign as appropriate. Entering business money transactions without proper documentation is one of the easiest ways people get caught up in the war of words, which usually is the beginning of other forms of war. Though amongst associates there is an invisible bond to honor their words and agreements, this is usually not because it is in the character of the individuals to do so, but because of the fear of the consequences of not doing so. With this knowledge in mind, we can expect our associates to honor their agreements with us, but at the same time, we should also prepare as though they will fail in honoring their agreements with us. A little caution, which can save us from major regrets in the long run, is worth whatever stress it might cause us in the short run. Upon signing an agreement, always seek the necessary power to enforce it if the need arises. This is important, because agreements are just as good as the parties involved. An associate will likely keep to the terms of an agreement when he understands that he has too much to lose by not doing so. Agreements do not entirely shield us from people's treachery, but it is at least a proof that a transaction took place between both parties, and with that, a needed defense should the case arise for a settlement. Without proper documentation, it becomes your word against theirs, and that is a sorry state to be in if your opponent is a master in editing the truth. It often amazes me how good men will become good liars when matters arise. At difficult times, you should understand that business gone bad is not the death of a parent or loved one. Therefore, you do not need sympathizers, but rather solution givers. First of all, it is best that we stick around those who have shared interests with us in the situation. It is hardly ever worth it to tell friends about your situation unless you are sure they will help you. Unfortunately, most friends are only ready to take a bullet for you when there is no gun in the vicinity. Friends and associates alike are only as loyal as their self-interest demands. That said, some are lucky to find true friendship in the course of life. However, in the wake of current strides in the scheme of things in today's world, harsh realities have proven time and time again that your spouse is not your best friend. You certainly must be friends to be spouses, but I repeat, your spouse is not your best friend or so-called confidant. To think otherwise is to simply accept and live by a popular lie. Your spouse is your spouse. Your siblings are your siblings. Your priest remains your priest. Your friend, your friend. Your associates are what they are, associates. Each has their role, and it should never be muddled up. If our spouses become our associates or so-called best friends, knowing all on the home front and business front, how do we cover our tracks when they serve us the divorce papers? Funny, but true. Some associates are in ruins today because they gave information for associates to their spouse, and information for their spouse to their priest. In conclusion, love your God, yourself, and family. Make a lot of money, stay relevant, and whatever and whoever you have around you is as much as you can get. Nonetheless, we should strive continuously to have as many people as possible call us their friend rather than their enemy, even if we have to buy them. Consequently, we must bear in mind that friends bought with money will sell us out to a higher bidder. It is extremely worthy of note that your most important associate in business is the government. and that should be the government of the day. A businessman has no loyalty to political parties. His party anywhere in the world is AGIP, which stands for Any Government in Power. Any business totally separated from the government is a struggle. One must strive to get required policies in his favor, or in a case where the means to lobby is not available, then one should align himself with existing policies, or better still, strategically position for proposed policies. Also important is to always pay your tax. Your company tax is to the government what your individual tithe is to God. A final caution as regards friends and associates is that it is to our advantage to understand on time that our Father's friends are our Father's friends. We cannot really expect any favors from them when our Father is gone. This has been Part 1 of Uncommon Sense, Notes on Life and Business, written by Christopher Uyi, narrated by Adrian Galley, an Audio Shelf production.